Hi there, it's Colette, and in today's episode, it's all about your questions. I reached out to those in the podcast Facebook group, and I got some great questions. We're going to cover hypotension or low blood pressure, autoimmune disorders, and spices, how to prepare spices, and so on. So please stay tuned as we delve deep into these topics today. Hello and welcome to Elements of Ayurveda, Empowering Wisdom of Life. I'm your host Colette, and in this podcast I hope to empower you to take charge of your own health by sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, the ancient healing tradition from India. We will also discuss topics like health and wellness, nutrition, yoga, fitness, meditation, breath work, and much more, as well as interviewing lots of inspiring people along the way. My humble wish is to help you to connect to your true nature, to Mother Nature, and to each other. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe to the show, and the new episodes will automatically download for you to enjoy. If you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend you listen to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. I've also set up a Facebook group for us to connect and to support each other, and I'd love for you to join me over at Elements of Ayurveda podcast group. And now here's the show. Hello, so it's me, Colette, today, and I am answering some questions, like I said, that were submitted by those of you in the Elements of Ayurveda podcast Facebook group, which, by the way, if you're not a member of, please come on over. It's where we can support each other and ask questions and share information over there. So I will put a link to that in the show notes, so check it out. Okay, so let's get started. The first question is from Aurora, and thank you so much for this question. She said, I would love to hear more about the Ayurvedic perspective on low blood pressure, specifically the feeling of being dizzy when you stand up. So low blood pressure or hypotension is when the blood pressure falls below the normal levels. Now, normal levels are defined as a reading lower than 90/60. And it occurs when the heart is pumping blood through the arteries, but the pressure is really weak. So this can cause a decrease in the blood flow around the body. Now, symptoms of low blood pressure can be dizziness, that you talk about, Aurora, or lethargy or weakness. There may be a lack of focus, a lack of concentration, blurred vision. Can also sometimes manifest in stress or nausea or fatigue. Now, as Aurora said, when she stands up quickly, or even for some people when they sit up quickly, this is when a person may experience the dizziness or even sometimes fainting. The heart basically cannot pump the blood fast enough around the body to support the sudden movement. So there are many reasons that somebody may experience low blood pressure. And one reason could be pregnancy, because there's extra work for the blood circulatory system to do. So there's more stress on that system. Therefore, this can be one of the factors of low blood pressure. Also, poor nutrition, eating a diet of processed foods or refined sugars and so on will produce poor quality tissues. Now, I went into detail on the nutrition of the dhatus. The dhatus are the tissues of the body in episode number 92, where I detailed the process of how when we eat something, it becomes our tissues. And if we're not choosing healthy foods, then these tissues of the body will be of poor quality. So basically our body is trying to do its best with the raw materials we provide. And if we're providing poor quality raw materials, the body can't really construct powerful tissues. So, and this includes the tissues that make up the walls of the blood vessels, which can result, if there's a poor diet, it can result in a less supportive blood vessel. They could be stretched or just flabby blood vessels. And this will also affect the pressure of the blood flowing through the vessel. Another reason for low blood pressure could, of course, be blood loss, lack of B12 as well. Sometimes for vegetarians or vegans, have to watch out for that. People with low blood sugar sometimes can have low blood pressure also. There's an infection in the body, of course, or sometimes medications can cause low blood pressure, allergic reactions, and also emotional instability can cause low blood pressure as well. Now, Ayurveda explains to us that low blood pressure comes back to our Agni, or our digestive fire. And when our digestive fire is not performing correctly, it can cause the doshas to become imbalanced or out of whack. So now let's take a look at each dosha and see how these imbalances manifest for each dosha. Well, we know Vata has a tendency towards poor circulation, which is why a lot of times people with a high Vata constitution may suffer from cold hands and cold feet due to that lack of circulation in the body. And when Vata is aggravated, the circulation can really be affected. And this can be the reason, therefore, for a low blood pressure with the Vata constitution. Now, if it is a case that you have a high Vata constitution, low blood pressure, well, Ayurveda suggests maybe adding more garlic to your diet, as the garlic can be very beneficial in igniting that digestive fire. We know for Vata, the digestive fire really fluctuates a lot. It's irregular. And so the garlic will really help stimulate that digestive fire. For the Pitta dosha, when it's aggravated, it can lead to really poor liver function and anemia. And both of these can be the reason for low blood pressure for a high Pitta constitution. Now, what would benefit a person with low blood pressure and a high Pitta constitution? Well, turmeric could be very beneficial here because the anti-inflammatory properties of turmeric really pacifies the Pitta dosha. And so finally, when cough is aggravated, there can be congestion and blockages in the body. And this can really reduce the blood flow, and this can cause low blood pressure in a person with a high kapha constitution. So Ayurveda recommends adding some cayenne pepper, because cayenne pepper is powerful. It breaks through things. It's pungent. And so the cayenne pepper will break up those kapha blockages. Of course, I always recommend you get advice before adding things into your diet. This is general advice from Ayurveda. But some other general advice is having some beetroot juice. Maybe a cup of beetroot juice 2 times a day can really help improve the blood pressure. Also pomegranate, including leafy green vegetables, fruits, nuts, whole grains, figs are great as well. And of course, B12, I mentioned earlier, B12 is a very important supplement for vegans out there and vegetarians. Adding some salt to your food, of course, can help to raise blood pressure, making sure that it's good quality salt. It could be like a Himalayan pink salt or rock salt. Some other spices that can help increase is cinnamon. Now, cinnamon, we also know, helps to transport the heat around the body, which will aid Vata tremendously. And black pepper stimulates the digestive fire. Then we have cardamom and turmeric that we mentioned a moment ago, because turmeric has the anti-inflammatory qualities that will pacify Pitta. Ginger too is great at stimulating the digestive fire. And I also mentioned just a moment ago cayenne pepper for kapha, really breaking through any of those blockages or congestion. Reducing caffeine and processed foods and refined sugars really goes a long way towards making sure that your blood pressure is not too low. Practicing yoga and pranayama, because of course this will relieve stress and anxiety. Then that can have an effect I talked about earlier, where emotional disturbances may have an effect on your blood pressure also. And avoiding stimulants, avoiding overworking intensity, and we know that that really applies to Pitta dosha, because that intensity can aggravate Pitta and then lead to aggravation in the liver and so on. So there you go, Aurora. I hope that answers your question. And as you can see, it's important to understand which of your doshas is out of balance and causing this low blood pressure or hypotension. A great place to start, according to Ayurveda, is making making sure that your Agni or your digestive fire is working well. And at the time I'm recording this, I'm in the process of supporting a group through their Ayurvedic seasonal cleanse, really to support their Agni through the change of the seasons, which is a time when people can get sick because the digestive system is confused by the change in climate and we're changing in foods and so on. So if anyone is interested in a tailored cleanse, I do provide them privately. If you're sorry that you missed the group, I provide them privately throughout the year, and it's all done online, so very easy to do. I'll put the link to that in the show notes, and you can also visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com/programs. Thank you, Aurora, for that question. I think it was really good to cover that. Thank you. Okay, the next question is from Jennifer, and Jennifer says she would love to know how Ayurveda can help with autoimmune disease and disorders, specifically alopecia. Well, normally our immune system is all about fighting off foreign invaders, right, in our body. And our immune system identifies these foreign invaders and eliminates them before they can cause any harm. However, in an autoimmune disease, the Western medical system describes how the body becomes confused between the foreign substances and its own cells and begins to attack itself. So the body basically is attacking the healthy cells. Now, in the case of alopecia, it is a common autoimmune disorder and often results in unpredictable hair loss. Other samples of an autoimmune disorder are like psoriasis or eczema, rheumatoid arthritis, inflammatory bowel disease, MS, Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So all these are under the umbrella of autoimmune disease, and there's many, many more. So let's take a look at how Ayurveda explains autoimmune disease. Well, Ayurveda explains that ama, or toxins, are the bedrock of all disease in the body. And ama is caused by undigested food. How do we have undigested food in our system? Well, it's because our Agni, or our digestive fire, is not working properly. So what happens is, we take in food, it's not being digested properly, and then it goes through our GI tract, our gastrointestinal tract, and now we have possibly some of this undigested food, or this ama, we're going to call it from now on, these toxins leaking out of our gastrointestinal tract into our bloodstream. And this is where it starts circulating around the body and causes problems. And this kind of sounds like the modern day, right, leaky gut syndrome. So leaky gut is caused by an unhealthy gut lining, which is a gut that we can have tears or cuts. And this is what allows those food particles or toxins to pass through. And this just reminds me of that last answer I had to low blood pressure, where we talked about the poor quality food choices can result in poor quality tissues, right? And that we said that the blood vessels are one of these tissues, and so they can become flabby or weak or stretch, and that could be a cause of the low blood pressure. Well, in this case too, it could be that the food choices, if we're not providing our body with the right raw materials, if the raw materials are substandard, then our body can't make these strong cells and tissues. And then if we throw some stress into our life, and an impaired Agni or digestive fire, we can see how this situation can manifest. So our digestion isn't working correctly. There's undigested food, ama, going into our system. It's leaking through our poor quality intestinal walls, right, going into the bloodstream, and now it's in the bloodstream. So now the ama toxins enter the bloodstream through these poor quality tissues, and this ama is circulating around the body and looking for a weakness in the system. Now, this weakness could be an old injury, it could be something that's weak from a previous illness, or it could be a genetic weakness. But this ama is searching for a spot. It knows it needs to find the weakest link so it can embed itself in those tissues, be it bones or organs or tissues. And what the ama will do is it will go enter into this weak spot and overwhelm this tissue. And there can be a battle at this stage between the Agni in the tissue and this circulating ama. Now we need to remember here that each tissue has its own Agni. There's not just the main digestive fire, but all these tissues have their own Agnis as well. So now there's going to be a battle going on between the tissue Agni and this aggravated ama coming in. And if this tissue Agni is weak, then the ama enters the tissue and creates cellular confusion and changes how the cell operates. The ama is carrying aggravated doshas. And it carries the aggravated doshas into the bloodstream and the tissues. And this is where we begin to see the signs and symptoms of the disease. Now, if, for example, the ama is carrying aggravated pitta dosha, then this could manifest into an inflammatory disease, like inflammatory bowel disease. Just to summarize there, when we have a problem with a digestive fire, it leads to undigested food, which creates toxins called ama. The ama can then leak out of the gastrointestinal tract into the bloodstream. It's going to carry with it, this ama is carrying with it the aggravated doshas, whether it be aggravated vata, pitta, or kapha, and now it's circulating around the bloodstream trying to find the weakest link. And once it finds that weak tissue, the ama is going to come in along with the aggravated dosha, and if the Agni, the digestive fire of the tissue, is not strong enough, the ama will overwhelm it, and then it will create cellular confusion and change how this cell or tissue operates. So you can see that according to Ayurveda, undigested food or ama is responsible for disease in the body and the mind. And what's the source of ama? Our digestive system. And if our digestive system is not breaking down the food correctly, it will result in ama, and the process of disease in the body or mind starts. Now, Ayurveda tells us that there's 6 stages of the disease. It first starts with accumulation. The next phase is aggravation. Then the disease can begin to spread, like circulating in the bloodstream. Then there can be localization. This is when that ama with the aggravated dosha or doshas finds the weak spot. Then there's localization. Then there's the manifestation of disease. And then there's the differentiation or the change. Now, I covered this disease process in detail in episode number 64, the 6 stages of disease. And I'll link that in the show notes so you can check that out if you're interested. It is really interesting information from Ayurveda about how disease manifests in the body. So if you haven't listened to that, I recommend you check that out. So therefore, is the solution to autoimmune disease as simple as fixing your gut? Well, of course, you would need to find out to determine the dosha or doshas that are aggravated and what stage the disease is in. However, in Ayurveda, the treatment will always be holistic and always be individually tailored to each person. Of course, the gut health is a huge part of this treatment because, as we know, our digestive system houses 70 to 80% of our immunity. Ayurveda understood this thousands of years ago, and now modern science and research is agreeing with that. But we also need to look at our diet and our lifestyle and our habits and how we're living and our relationships and everything in our life. Because Ayurveda explains that when we're out of touch with our circadian rhythm, our internal 24-hour clock, this too can cause stress on the body and the mind and lead to disease. So this is where Ayurveda excels. It's a holistic approach to health, the understanding that everything in our life affects our health. And of course, Western medicine is amazing. Technology is amazing. However, it is a reductionist approach of the body where there's specialists in each area of the body. And this zoomed in approach to medicine means that there's just a narrow view of the body. In Ayurveda, it looks at the whole body, not only the physical organs and systems, but also the subtle connections of the body, and that they're all interconnected and they all support each other. And I think the reductionist approach has led to an overly complicated approach to health and well-being, in my opinion. And today, with so much information coming at us and so many different trending diets and supplements and just info in general, this can really lead to people being overwhelmed and decision paralysis when it comes to taking an active role in your health and in your healthcare. So this is why the Ayurvedic approach really resonates with me and with you, obviously, out there, because you're interested in seeking more information, because it's so logical, it's holistic, and it's in tune with nature. And I do think, like I said a moment ago, that the medical and the scientific community is changing, and now new research is proving the interconnectedness of the body and mind. And, we had those 3 scientists win the Nobel Peace Prize for their work on circadian rhythms. And now we have lifestyle medicine and circadian medicine and so on. So there is change coming. And I also hear a lot of people in the medical and health field now simplifying their approach to health, which is really refreshing to see. We've had Michael Pollan, who brought out a few years ago The Omnivore's Dilemma. And 2 of his quotes are, don't eat anything your grandmother wouldn't recognize as food. I think he said your great-grandmother. But, keep it simple, right? And his other quote is, eat food, not too much, mostly plants. Great advice. And another well-known MD, Dean Ornish, and his wife Anne just came out with a new book called Undo It. And his advice is eat well, move more, stress less, and love more. And Dr. Ornish says that we can reverse chronic diseases by changing our habits, in that the way we eat, the way we exercise, the way we live, and the way we love. So I think this is really refreshing. Like I said, information coming from the medical community. And I truly believe that we must give our body the respect it deserves for all it does for us, but also give our body a tune-up from time to time, and which is why we do regular cleansing in Ayurveda. And an Ayurvedic cleanse is nurturing. It's very healing to the tissues. And we really need to take this time out, just like we would get, our car taken care of, our oil change and so on. We need to do this for our body and respect it and give it the attention it deserves, especially if we want it to function properly. But not only looking at our body, we also really need to look at our daily habits. And like Dr. Dean Ornish says, we can reverse chronic diseases by changing our habits, because our habits are on a day-to-day basis, and they're making up our lives. So what we do each day, and especially if we're making poor choices every day, well, this is going to be accumulative and create problems down the road. We can't keep expecting to be okay if we're not doing our best and making the best efforts to look after our health and well-being. We really need to take ownership of our own health, and which is why I love Ayurveda, because it's really empowering us to take charge of our own health. So Jennifer, I hope this answered your question, and I hope you get some consolation that Ayurveda has a path to healing for autoimmune disorders, and it is possible. It's just important to understand what's the root of the imbalance, what dosha or doshas are out of balance, and then put a tailored strategy in place for you. So I recommend speaking to an Ayurvedic professional on this and getting some advice that's tailored to you. Now, if you, Jennifer, or anyone else listening wants some support or has some further questions, please reach out to me. I'll put my email in the show notes. I also offer that free 20-minute online services call. I do online consultations. I have those tailored cleanses. And I also have a daily habits for holistic health course. I actually want to talk about this for a moment, because I do have a discounted group course coming up starting October 25th. And this course is all about looking at those daily habits and trying to bring in some new habits and bring in a new operating system so that you're providing your body with the best foundation from which it can function for you. So as I said earlier, Ayurveda tells us, along with poor digestion, one of the causes of disease is an imbalance with the fundamental energies and rhythms of nature. And we really thrive when our lives have a routine or rhythm. I know for parents out there, right, you see it when your kids are in routine, they really are better children. They really are happier children. But us adults are the same. And unfortunately, our busy lives tend to pull us out of these natural rhythms. And this is why I created this 4-week online course, because it's an opportunity for you to learn about these daily rhythms and to bring in some really simple daily habits and routines that fit into your lifestyle easy and that are in tune with the circadian rhythms. And this is going to help you flow with the energies of the day, flow with those circadian rhythms rather than going against them and suffering. Now, in Ayurveda, attuning your lifestyle to nature's rhythm is really a crucial part to prevention and treatment. So along with implementing daily self-care habits and routines to really build up this strong foundation of holistic health so that you can buffer stress or prevent illness or just give you a strong foundation to get through your day-to-day life. But we'll also be covering topics like the circadian rhythms in detail and how to structure your day and work with these energies, right? We'll also be talking about the different mental qualities and the mental gunas and talking about how to achieve mental balance, which is really huge. But of course, we know our mental health affects our physical health and vice versa. We'll learn about the foundation of Ayurvedic healing. So this is where I teach you about the healing principle of Ayurveda, the principle of opposites, and how logical it is and how simple it is to bring into your own life. And we'll go deep into that so that you can become your own healer. And also you'll learn about how intuition and positivity and compassion really impacts your health and well-being. So how you are in the world as well impacts your health and well-being. And along with all this information, you'll get a short video each day, and you'll also get access to a private course site where it has all these worksheets and these webinars, and it's self-paced, but I will be checking in with you, and you'll get online support from me throughout as well, as long as a supportive Facebook community. So if you're interested in implementing a regular daily routine, it's simple, it's not a lot of extra work, but it helps to bring you in sync with your environment. It prevents disease, creating greater energy and happiness and well-being. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you join us? So like I said, the group course is discounted and we're going to be starting October 25th. So please come join us. I'm going to put the link in the show notes, or you can just visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and just click on the events tab and you'll see the Daily Habits for Holistic Health course right there. Okay, so I hope you can join us. That course has really helped a lot of people. You can see the testimonials on my website, but it's, like I said, very simple, effective. You need to look at what those habits are daily that may be affecting your health. Okay, so now let's move on to the final question from Lucia Maria. And she asks, how to prepare spices? Is just chewing them okay, or do I need to grind them or heat them? Good question. Okay, so there's a couple more parts to this question, but I'll start with here. So spices contain a lipid-soluble portion, a fat-soluble portion, and a water-soluble portion. So ideally, we should be sauteing the spices in a little ghee or coconut oil or some other healthy oil for a few minutes to bring out the flavor and the qualities of the spices before adding them to dishes. And Ayurveda and in general in Indian cooking, I believe, you always cook off the spices first. Now, ghee is fantastic to use because that really helps transport the therapeutic value of the spices to different parts of the body. And we do ideally, in an ideal world, want to ground the spices freshly. So we want to use freshly ground spices ideally because these freshly ground spices have more prana or life force, and if you freshly grind them just before cooking, they will have more flavor, but also more medicinal action. I've covered spices in other episodes and how they have amazing medicinal properties for the body. So you could grind them in a mortar or pestle or a spice grinder, and you'll want to use these freshly ground spices straight away, as once you grind them, the prana starts diminishing. So Again, ideally grinding fresh and then cooking off in a little fat like ghee or coconut oil. And this is where you'll get the best flavor and the best therapeutic benefits from those spices. We have to remember also that spices are very gentle, right? They work gradually, so the benefits are cumulative over time. And this is why they're safe to use as well. So I always say that you can use your spices in your own healing, and check out those other episodes I've done on the different spices and herbs. They're really great information and great medicine from Mother Nature. Okay, so the next part of this question is medicated ghee and chyawanprash possible to take along with food? Okay, so medicated ghee is ghee cooked with special herbs or spices, and a Vedya or an Ayurvedic practitioner may prescribe this for healing. You'll often get this if you're doing a panchakarma. You'll get ghee that's medicated with herbs or spices specifically for your condition. So what I would suggest here, Lucia Maria, is that if you got this medicated ghee from a practitioner, that you follow their instructions as to when to take it. But you could also, if it's just your own medicated ghee, if you're just adding some spices or herbs to your ghee, making a little healing ghee at home, well then, of course, you could use spice and herbs that are appropriate for your constitution and just enjoy those with your food. Absolutely. But if it's something that you got from a practitioner, I would definitely say check with their instructions because they will be tailored to you. Okay, for chyawanprash, this is a rejuvenating jam, and it's really recommended in Ayurveda to nourish and rejuvenate and restore the body. Now, again, Lucia Maria, if you got this chyawanprash from an Ayurvedic practitioner and they give you advice, I would stick to that advice. But it's also fine if you just have it on some food. Or you could add it to like a warm milky drink. You know, you could add it into your golden milk. That's absolutely fine too. So yes, chyawanprash is absolutely fine to take with food or drinks. The medicated ghee, I would check. Okay, the final part of this question is, what types of pranayama can you recommend? I have the normal ones that I do for 1 year, and I look for some new ones. Okay. So, well, I do have a pranayama or breathwork tutorial video that I'll link to in the show notes. Or if you just want to visit my website, you'll find it under the resources tab in the freebies page. So this tutorial, I demonstrate the pranayama or the breath work for each dosha, the best one for each dosha. So for Vata, it was Nadi Shodhana or alternate nostril breathing. For Pitta, it's Shatali, cooling breath. And for Kapha, it's Brastrika or the energizing breath. There's also a couple more breath work on there. I think there's Ujjayi breath as well. But if you want to add something new to your breath work, Lucia Maria, you could add like a visualization, doing the breath work that you're doing that's recommended for your constitution, and adding a visualization that would benefit your constitution. So for example, if Vata is aggravated, we need to ground it. And a grounding visualization would be thinking of something grounded in nature, like a mountain or the soil, the earth, visualizing the earth. So you can see how just even visualizing that in your mind's eye as you're doing your pranayama could help ground the Vata dosha. Example for Pitta. So if Pitta, when aggravated in general, gets overheated, well, thinking of a cooling scene in nature, maybe that's the ocean. Visualizing the blue, cool ocean. And that would really help. Just that visualization along with the Shatali cooling breath could be great for cooling Pitta heat. And finally, for Kapha, who has a tendency when aggravated to become more heavy and sluggish, lethargic, then we need more movement in the visualization. So if you're doing the Brastrika breath, maybe visualizing the wind blowing in the trees or waves or a river flowing. Just that visualization alone can help with bringing in the opposite qualities of that heavy, lethargic sluggishness of Kapha. So I hope that helps. These visualizations are, like I said, are just bringing the opposite qualities. They're very simple, but it can just add a little change to your pranayama. And also, I think it's good to check in with yourself every day and how you're feeling. And then choose the pranayama for how you're feeling that day. And that's in alignment with your constitution. And also noticing if you're wanting things to change a lot. Like, is it a vata aggravation that's kind of flitting around and wanting change all the time? In that case, it may be beneficial for you to stick with one routine and not changing all the time, because we know vata likes change. And if the vata dosha is aggravated, it seeks more change and just new situations and new excitement and so on. But that can be aggravating to the vata dosha. Vata is really grounded and stabilized by routine. Even though vata generally doesn't like routine, likes to be spontaneous and change. But I want you to understand here, Lucia Maria, that if it's a vata aggravation, that doing the same simple routine could be really beneficial for you. So that's just some food for thought there. So there you go. That's the end of the questions. I hope they were useful. And just to remind you again, as always, seek out advice before making any big changes, especially if you have some serious conditions. Always seek out advice rather than guessing, because you could take yourself down a wrong path. So I think it's really best to reach out to a professional. And finally, if you're interested in signing up for that 4 weeks daily habits for holistic health course, online course, self-paced, and some really great information in there from Ayurveda, well, please click on the link in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com/events. And I'd love to support you on this journey to take in charge of your own health. My goal is to educate you and empower you. This course will certainly get you on that journey. Thanks again for tuning in. If you think that this episode will be beneficial to family or friends, please share it with them, and we can get this wisdom of Ayurveda out there to people. And take good care of yourself. Be well, and ciao for now.